Welcome, brave souls, to a night of spine-chilling tales. Halloween is a time for parties, costumes, and gathering around to share terrifying stories. But tonight's tales are not your average ghost stories. They're the kinds of encounters that leave you with a feeling you just can't shake. Experiences that make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. These stories come from people who dared to go beyond the boundaries of safety, thinking they were invincible. But the events that followed proved them wrong, and some were left haunted in ways they can't quite explain. So if you're ready to plunge into the shadows and feel a chill that will stay with you long after the story ends, you're in the right place. And remember, if you enjoy these tales, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your own haunting experiences in the comments below. Now turn down the lights, brace yourself, and let's dive into these chilling Halloween tales. Halloween night. The streets were bustling with people dressed as monsters, heroes, and strange creatures, and the air was filled with laughter and loud music. I had reluctantly agreed to go to this Halloween party with my friend Danny. I wasn't much of a party person, but it was Halloween and everyone was excited. The house was decorated with eerie spider webs, glowing jack-o'-lanterns, and fake bats hanging from the ceiling. The guests were in full costume, and the vibe was loud, wild, and just a bit too intense for me. But that wasn't what made me uneasy. It was when I first saw him, standing in the corner of the room, dressed in all black, with a plain white mask covering his face. I couldn't tell if it was just a mask or if something was really off about him, but his stillness made him stand out among the moving, dancing crowd. He didn't seem to be drinking, laughing, or talking. He just stood there, watching. I brushed it off at first, thinking he was probably just someone getting into the Halloween spirit by acting mysterious. But every time I glanced around the room, he was there, standing completely still, his eyes hidden behind that smooth white mask. And the most disturbing part was that every time I looked, he seemed to be a little closer. As the night went on, I started to feel more and more uneasy. It was like an invisible force pulling me to turn around to look for him in the crowd, only to see him again, slightly nearer. At one point, I asked Danny if he'd noticed the guy in the mask. Danny laughed, shrugging it off as someone pulling a prank, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I didn't drink that night. I wanted to keep my senses sharp, and it turned out to be the right decision because as the party started winding down, I spotted him in the hallway, watching me from a mere few feet away, his head tilted slightly as if examining me closely. My heart raced, and I didn't even stop to think before I grabbed Danny and told him we were leaving. As we walked out of the house, I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see that masked figure following us. Even as we got into the car, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. And as Danny started the engine, I caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror. There he was, standing on the edge of the woods just beyond the house, watching us leave. I don't know who he was or what he wanted, but I'll never forget that night. Every Halloween since, I find myself looking over my shoulder, wondering if he's out there searching for someone else. Sometimes I think Halloween night holds a strange kind of energy, a thrill that makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. But that night, that masked figure wasn't just a Halloween prank. It was something far more sinister. And even now, I can't fully explain the fear that creeps in when I think about it. The second story happened on another Halloween night, but this one was meant to be an adventure, a night of thrill-seeking and laughs. I was with my friends Jacob, Lisa, and Aaron. We'd grown up in a small town, and there was a well-known rumor about an old abandoned church on the edge of town. Some said it was haunted. Others claimed squatters used it as a hideout. But the darker rumors whispered that strange rituals had taken place there long after the church had been abandoned. The stories were enough to make us curious, and since we thought of ourselves as fearless, we decided to spend Halloween night exploring it. The church sat isolated between a cornfield and a patch of woods that always felt unnervingly still. In the daytime, the area was quiet and peaceful, but by night it felt entirely different. The silence was so deep it was like stepping into a place frozen in time. The building itself looked like something out of a horror movie. Shattered windows, crumbling stone walls, and vines that crawled up the sides, making it look like nature was reclaiming it. Despite its decaying state, the church still stood, a ghostly relic from another era. When we arrived, Lisa hesitated, saying she felt something was off, but Aaron laughed it off, eager to start our adventure. We brought sleeping bags, flashlights and snacks, planning to camp out and maybe catch a glimpse of something paranormal. As we pushed open the church doors, the creaking echoed into the vast empty space. Inside, the pews were scattered and broken, the altar cracked and crumbling, yet there was enough moonlight seeping in to cast eerie shadows all around us. We settled down in the middle of the room, turning on our flashlights and trying to laugh away the unease that hung in the air. For a while, things were normal. We told ghost stories, teasing each other about who'd be the first to see a spirit. But as the night went on, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and every sound seemed magnified in the silence. Just as we were starting to get comfortable, we heard it, footsteps. At first they were so faint that I thought I'd imagined them, but then they grew louder, unmistakable, echoing through the empty church. Lisa clutched her flashlight, her face pale. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Aaron tried to play it off, saying it was probably a rat or an animal, but these footsteps were different, heavy, deliberate. Jacob stood up, calling out, "Hello, is anyone there?" But there was only silence in response. The footsteps had stopped, leaving us with an uneasy silence that felt even worse. Aaron, ever the thrill-seeker, decided to investigate, saying we'd come here to explore. Reluctantly, Jacob and I followed, with Lisa close behind. We moved down a narrow hallway at the back of the church, our flashlights illuminating dust and shadows. The hallway led us to a small storage room, and in the corner was another door, leading down to the basement. Aaron's eyes lit up with excitement as he pushed the basement door open, despite Lisa's protests. The stairs creaked under our weight, and the cold intensified with each step. When we reached the bottom, the smell of damp earth filled the air, and the silence was so complete it felt like the basement was holding its breath. Then we saw it. A figure stood in the corner, completely still, facing the wall. For a moment none of us moved, too stunned to even breathe. Aaron called out, "Who's there?" But the figure remained silent and unmoving. As we stood frozen, the figure began to turn, not all the way, just enough for us to catch a glimpse of its face, or rather, where its face should have been. There were no features, just a smooth, pale surface, like something straight out of a nightmare. That was enough. Without another word, we bolted up the stairs, adrenaline pumping as we scrambled out of the church. None of us stopped until we were outside, gasping for air, the cold night surrounding us like a blanket. We didn't talk on the way back to the car. What could we say? We'd gone looking for a scare and found something that still lingers in my memory, haunting me. Even now, I'll never go near that church again. There are moments in life that stick with you. Experiences that defy explanation. Halloween has a strange energy to it, a thrill that makes us seek out the things that scare us. But sometimes we find more than we bargained for. Whether it's a masked figure watching from the shadows, or a faceless presence lurking in a forgotten place, the unknown is closer than we think. It's waiting for those who are willing to cross that line, to venture into places and situations they should probably avoid. So this Halloween, keep your eyes open, stay safe, and maybe think twice before seeking out something that might just be watching you back. And remember, if you've had a Halloween experience that sent chills down your spine, share it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, stay safe and beware of what might be lurking in the shadows. Halloween is a night when the veil is thin, and sometimes what you find can haunt you long after the night is over. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next night.